What?
Chad said he saw you today.
Yeah, I saw Chad today, yeah. He comes over to the house, brings you bottles.
There
Yeah,
you
yeah. Brings me bottles and we're gonna fill up this water. Yeah.
Very devoted to his job.
Yeah. So I see Chad a lot.
Are we live, Joey?
We are live now.
Okay, so I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 6:30. So we're gonna stand please and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll start with roll call. Joey, please.
Borowski?
Here.
Bob?
Here.
Vogel?
Here.
Montgomery?
Here.
Reddick?
Here.
And Boozy.
Here.
So, did everyone have a chance to review the minutes? And are there any corrections, deletions?
I'll move that the minutes be approved as presented.
Second.
Motion is passed. So before we begin, I'd just like to welcome you to the City Planning Commission meeting tonight and just give you a few guidelines. So when speaking, please feel free to use our podium. Also make sure that you address the commissioners, not those out in the audience. When you are speaking, please tell us your first name, your last name, your address, and phone number. Say it slow enough it can be recorded, please. And when you're speaking, please speak clearly for all. We'd like you to limit your speaking time to 3 minutes, give or take. Having said that, do we have anyone who wishes to speak on anything not on the agenda tonight? Okay, so seeing that we have no one here to speak on anything, we are going to go ahead and start with our agenda here for number 6, which is our public hearing. This is a special use application by Seth Gibson Argue at 507 Winter Avenue, requesting to operate a home occupation dog grooming business on the property. So Seth, are you here tonight? Okay. So if you'd like to get up and speak. Yes.
Before, in your packet,
Yes.
Under the special land use procedure, it talks about section 10 of our zoning ordinance.
Okay.
Section 10.5 has that no application for a special land use which has been denied wholly or in part by the city commission shall be resubmitted for a period of 1 year from that date of said order of denial, except for the grounds of new evidence or proof of change or conditions found to be valid by the planning commission and the city commission. So before we have the public hearing on the actual special use request, the board needs to review that section of my staff report and make a determination on if new evidence has been submitted,
Okay.
so that determine if they can move forward or not.
And did we have any new evidence submitted?
So there is, in staff's determination, the applicant has provided a change from the last application as they have gone through the process with the county on changing the garage space, or what was the garage space into living space. So they got a building permit from Acosta County and went through the process of changing that space, which was considered an accessory use under our ordinance as a livable space, which would then is a change in the application. Staff's opinion.
I have a question.
Okay.
How does the process work then? I mean, there's a change, and how does the city work through that process to make sure it's, legitimate or?
So, because we don't do our own building inspections, those are done under Acosta County, the applicant filed with us for a zoning permit. We would have to give permission under the zoning ordinance to make sure it conforms to everything in the zoning ordinance to make the change. And then they would have to apply, the applicant would have to apply with the county, for Mecosta County, to their building department to change the use of that space from an accessory use into livable space, which means it has to meet different code requirements in the building code. Once they apply, the building inspector would review the plans, go through with them things that needed to be done, and then would do inspections during the process, depending on how many times they needed to be there. And when is complete, or he felt like they met code and everything, he would give them a certificate of occupancy, which you can see the approved sticker on the building permit that they provided in the packet, and it says it's a final building, which means that they did their final inspection on the structure and it's conforming to the building code.
And how does the city pick it up on the assessment card, or how they determine?
So once a month, the county sends over to our city assessor all of the building permits that have been pulled, building, electrical, plumbing, and mechanical, all of the permits that have been pulled through the county building department. And then the assessor will put them on the roll whenever is appropriate. I'm not sure, what time of year they do that, but the assessor gets that information.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So basically, on the initial application, they had not done the building permit with the county of Mecosta beforehand because they would have to get approval or start the process rolling.
The last application, the garage was considered an accessory structure even though it's attached, so that it was automatically disqualified under our ordinances. So now that they've gotten it, excuse me, approved by the county as living space, then that, I don't know, that's where that change comes from. So if there's no other questions, I would move for accepting that the new information meets the standards in the ordinance.
I'll support.
Borowski,
Yes.
Hahn,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes.
Montgomery,
Yes.
Reddick.
Yes.
Yes.
Now we can do the,
Sorry, I know, I'm just reading. So, yeah, so now you can come up and speak.
Hello, my name is Seth Gibson Argue. I live at 507 Winter Ave. My phone number is 231-408-8593. And when we came here last time, my garage was considered an accessory building, so we went through the necessary steps to convert it to a living space with the permit we have here and approved sticker we have here. And then now we're just trying to reapply under the new statutes that it's no longer, or under the city statutes that it's no longer a garage and it's now a living space, and that we can apply for that permit and have that document paid for. And last time also, one of our problems was that I might be slightly over the percentage that I'm allowed to have, which we also corrected in the spacing, and I also gave her a diagram of everything like drawn out and the spacing of how everything is laid out in there now as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have anyone here who wishes to talk in support or against? Okay,
It's good, hopefully.
Thank you.
you're welcome. So if there's no one that wants to speak on this matter, in favor of or against,
I'm in favor of.
did you have anything to say?
I mean, he said everything. I'm in favor of.
Okay,
Jerry, need your name and all that
Let me
stuff.
go up there and do it.
You can do it from there, please.
Jerry Bowman, 302 South Stewart, Big Rapids, Michigan.
Thank you.
yes,
Dean Krager, 520 Winter Avenue.
you're a supporter?
Well, I don't really support, I have never even met my neighbor yet.
Okay.
I'm actually here, my wife and I were here because we wanted to understand if there was gonna be zoning changes, how those zoning changes would affect us. So right now, so we moved into an R1 neighborhood, and obviously the taxes aren't cheap. And so what we were wondering is if the board goes ahead and rezones, what would be rezoned? What would the new zone be, and how would that affect us living in that particular neighborhood? That was my,
If I may.
yep,
So it's not a rezoning.
okay,
It's a special use permit allowed potentially under the R1 zone. So that special use permit is attached to that property, not to the occupant or the specific intention. Down the road, if someone wanted to move into that place, they would have the option to use the same space with the same conforming methods if they wanted to. If they wanted to do anything besides this space and potentially a dog grooming business, they would have to come back for additional reapplication or something like that. So it's not a rezoning, you're still R1, you'll still always be
and
R1.
that's why I'm here, just to
Yeah.
understand, because you can hear neighbors talk, and everything's a little twisted in such a way that
Sure.
you don't know if you're getting the facts or not. So that's why I wanted to sit in and be able to verify.
Yep, absolutely.
Can you also provide your name, address, and phone number? please?
Yes,
Thank you.
Dean Kreger, address 520 Winter Avenue. I live just kind of kitty corner across the street. And our phone number, my phone number is 231-872-0330.
How do you spell your last name?
Krager.
Thank
Want to make
you.
sure I understood the impact on zoning if there was one. And that was based on the scuttlebutt that I had heard from some neighbors, and just want to know how that might affect me. I have nothing against Seth or the property. I just want to know what was the impact.
Okay, thank you.
Did I cover, Michelle, did I cover that? Okay.
So I'm gonna go ahead and close the public portion of this topic and move into fact finding with just our planning commissioners. Okay. So who wants to put out how they're feeling, thinking?
I think we kind of addressed a lot of this at the last meeting, and there were some issues that stopped it from moving forward, and then they went and did the legwork to make it to where those aren't issues anymore. They've clearly changed it to a living space, and it meets the requirements, so. The only thing that possibly concerned me was the fact that it is a long-term thing for something short-term. That's frustrating, but not, I mean, it fits the rules, so.
So I had a question for staff. If we were to, because I know Mr. Gibson, if I remember correctly, your intention is to be in this place not more than a year, at least working there, I'm
hopefully-
sorry.
Yeah, hopefully no longer than 2 to 3 years. I really just was wanting to be able to build a clientele that would allow me to afford my mortgage while also renting a facility, because, you know, it's a lot to have a business in your home as well.
So my question for staff was, is there a conditional approval that, I also want to clarify, we're not approving the special use, we're recommending, or we're making a recommendation to the city commission to approve or deny the special use. Can the city commission or the planning commission put language into that approval if we went that route to say that we would reevaluate this special use permit in 3 years, 2 years, whatever it is?
So you can, but it opens you up to being more challengeable. Because if something's okay to happen for a temporary period of time,
Sure.
then why isn't it okay to continue to happen? If, you know, they have to reapply and they could potentially get denied, why is it okay not to continue? And then also, like, why was it okay to only allow it temporary? So, it's somewhat, I mean, you can do it, but it's probably not
Understood.
best practice.
I just, From recalling correctly from the last meeting, the commission's concern was more that it didn't meet the city ordinances. The neighbor's concern who spoke that night or that evening, they were more concerned about additional traffic, potential dogs barking, things like that. I guess since we have a neighbor here, is that anything you've observed or had any issues with?
You know, in any neighborhood,
Not
somebody's
throw you
gonna
under the
have,
bus there, you know.
in any neighborhood, somebody's gonna have a dog that barks once in a while. Now, if there was lots of dogs, I'm sure people would take exception to it, right?
Sure.
Like if the dog barking was regular and loud enough or at night. And I was telling my wife on the way here, I said, the neighbors who I think were here last time who were voicing a lot of concern live a lot closer than we do.
Sure.
And we don't live that far away, but I have other neighbors on the other side whose dog barks. So a little dog barking I don't think is a big deal. It's just a matter of if it's constant and there's a lot of dogs, that would, I'm sure, get annoying to the neighborhood. For me, actually, just having grown up in a farming area, my greatest concern would be that if I was like just downwind and, you know, there was a lot of dogs out regularly, you know what I'm saying? That would be probably the only thing I can think of if I lived, you know, that close and maybe to the northeast.
Sure.
I live to the southwest, so I'm not too concerned about that. But I personally, I don't see a big deal here. I just think that the more closer you are, the more it could potentially affect you. You get stronger opinions, right?
Sure. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Gibson, but from your application and from what we talked about, there's never gonna be more than maybe 2 dogs in your facility at a time?
I'll never have another household's dog in there at the same time. It's only one-on-one grooming, so it's only 1 or 2 dogs at a time. It's very small.
So in your hours of operation or typical business hours, you're not grooming dogs at 12 o'clock at night when somebody's trying to sleep and the dogs are barking, so.
And so that my thought there was just a spin-off of, once again, neighborhood scuttlebutt, where people were talking about boarding and
Sure.
numerous dogs and that kind of a thing. And I'm like, okay, I could understand how you might be concerned about that. But once again, that's why you come to get the facts, because otherwise you're operating under a whole lot of other people's assumptions. So that's, once again, why I'm here.
Boarding thing too, I would have to get another license, which would allow, I would have to like try to get another special use, which I don't think you can have 2
Yeah.
special uses on the outside.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there would be additional that would have to be in the special use application if you want to do boarding, so.
I'm good.
My suggestion would be, you know, we have the ability to make conditions. You know, each appointment, maybe we could say each appointment, you can groom a maximum of 2 dogs. Just thinking out loud, you know, that's one. The other one would be, you know, boarding of dogs is prohibited. That takes care of 2 things. And I am, you know, I think that the temporary, you know, the temporary use for this concerns me also, and I know that, you know, maybe we'll leave ourselves, but it certainly could be a recommendation to the city commission that they look at it, and I'm sure the city attorney will have something to say about it, and at least, you know, put a 12-month, and then have to reapply. And I can see the problem if they come back and.
Well, we also have other ordinances in place for barking dogs and noisy neighbors and obnoxious neighbors for deterring that. In fact, I know of a few houses that are locked down right now that are not occupiable because people break the law. So I think as far as the temporary or permanent thing, I kind of see this as basically anybody starting a small business. If you can start a small business in your home, get some capital behind you before you go out and run a commercial spot, that's great. I would do the same thing. Unfortunately, the business I wanted to do doesn't fit the R1 or R2. So it just didn't happen. So I don't know if putting a temporary statute in there, I think you'd have to be an attorney to do that.
Well, and I kind of agree with the sentiment, it either is conforming or it's not, and so maybe we need to just address the code, that everyone has a 5-year, or 3-year, or 2-year review.
Yeah,
I'm not sure why this one
I
would
don't
be
like the
different. I know-
perpetuity part
I
of
think
it.
it's the dogs, we keep saying dogs and traffic, but I think it's really just dogs, but like you pointed out, there are ordinances that will also, we will have to conform to for that as well.
I think even just if it reset with owner,
That, yeah,
like that's the biggest
but I
thing is
don't
like,
think that's his
we're
problem,
tying
I think it's
something to
ours.
this property that he's saying is gonna be like a couple of years. And we're saying today that we would be recommending that, yeah, let's put this in there forever, even though he's saying it's gonna be temporary. I don't have a problem with it, it seems kind of weird that we have to make a forever statement on something that's temporary. That's what's weird.
So I can give you a little bit of the theory behind that. The reason, because you don't award special uses based on the people who are applying. You award them on the use of the property. And so if you're awarding it to one person and then the next person moves in and you say, nope, sorry, you can't do that exact same use that this person was doing on that property is not legal.
Then just like Christie Oil, they show up with their attorney and just say, it's ours, it's within the ordinance.
Yeah, so I mean, if you think about it from the equality standpoint that zoning protects some of, then allowing it for one person, but saying that as soon as that person sells that house, that special use goes away.
No, that makes perfect sense.
That's
That-
where it
that
comes
clears
in.
that up for me.
That's fine.
They also can't expand on the business, it'll still be within our,
Right, so like
Set.
if you do the limitations by dogs, he would, the next owner would also be required to meet that limitation. If you do, they're set to using only this space in that house so that the expansion can't happen in the basement or they can't start using the basement. We got a complaint, then we would say, no, the special use is specifically for this configuration.
Is this happened a lot in R1? Do we have a lot of special use permits right now?
I don't know how many we have. We have a handful of home
People-
occupations in the
Or
R1
running
district.
a business?
I think we might be surprised how many people are running
yeah.
a home
Business
business
without our
without a
knowledge.
special use permit.
Did the no parking signs, someone brought up no parking signs, did you?
I did get that cleared up.
Okay.
That street in the 70s became a no parking street, so you could not park on the street on that street. The signage is just kind of intermittently put out. It's not very clear, but there is no parking on that street.
I'm talking about that our winter.
Yeah.
I know the history behind that. If you want, I can share it with you.
Yeah, because I thought anybody could make their curb and sidewalk area.
Some streets are not, we have no parking traffic controls from chief of police on, and Winter is one of them. She said it was put on based on college students and hospital parking.
The other side of the street is open for parking. And it's just the side that the applicant is on has no parking, from what it looks like to me.
I've asked all my customers though to park in the driveway and not on the side, on the road at all.
Yeah, well, it came up last time and I thought,
That's probably best practice for you.
How does
Need to
everybody?
say something?
That's a question for the gal running the show.
I'm just concerned if there was putting a dog limit on there because there's gonna be times when customers are coming in out. I mean, like,
If we said by appointment, then two.
I think one family.
I don't know that I wanna negotiate with that. I don't even know if it's a good idea for us to do that. It's an idea. It takes away a little bit of the concern from the neighbors as well as the boarding being prohibited. And what I saw was, and number one, this is all dogs, just dogs, right?
Yes, sir.
So, I'm okay with two, based on what I've seen and heard, but I don't know if you wanna go ahead and do that. It's just a suggestion. As a condition.
Well, I wasn't here at your last meeting. I was actually homesick, but, I'm probably one of the only ones, I don't know, cause I wasn't here. But I'm not a big fan of allowing any business to be operating in an R1. That's just my personal opinion. I like those neighborhoods to stay just the way they are. But I am somebody who listens to the other planning commissioners, so I do tend to follow their lead. And so I am curious how they all feel, because I wasn't here the last meeting. So,
Whether we like it or not, he's compliant with the code for an R1 district.
And really, I think that that's something that a lot of people in the city
I also
really
support
don't understand.
like bringing in business and growth to
Sure.
the community within all the codes that we are enforcing.
I'd probably be a neighbor who would probably assume it was gonna annoy me, to be honest, right? Just because I bought a house in a specific area hoping for neighbors that might have a pet but not have a business with dogs. Because I love dogs. I have 2 at home right now. And I even maybe need a new groomer. However, I just, I grew up here, I was born and raised here, and I like the city. I'm one of the only ones that isn't maybe as, it's not that I'm not forward thinking, it's just that I just like things to move slower in Big Rapids than some of the big cities. I see how big things can get and grow, and that's just me personally. Many people probably do not feel like I do, and that's fine too. Everyone's allowed to have their opinions, so. So I guess we would just need to, yeah.
Well, last time I brought up the two issues. One was a mechanical table, and they talk about having mechanical equipment that are not part of a household, which still seems to me that was it's not every house has it. My friend Kate here has one, so that I guess we left that one alone. The other thing is they've done all this work, and it seems to me that it says no such home occupation shall require interior or exterior alterations, and all the work they've done, is this what we're talking about?
I believe in that section of the code, it goes on to talk about like utilities, things you can see.
Well, and some of that is up to, hold on. Get to that section.
Section 8 shows like exterior
Yeah.
alterations.
The home shall not require exterior alterations that change the residential character of the dwelling. The statement shall not be construed so as to prohibit necessary alterations to comply with the ADA compliance. But number 4 also says, no home occupation shall require interior or exterior alterations or use of mechanical equipment not customary for housekeeping. So, in my interpretation, or how I see that is, and the board can see it completely different than me, I by no means an expert on that. My opinion is when they're talking about alterations, they're talking about alterations that you wouldn't find in any other house, like in other households. So when you're making changes, it's not a change that would be custom to anyone else's household. So I'm not, you know, the changes that they made to this house were adding heat to, the space and putting flooring down. It was already drywalled to begin with. So to me, those are changes that most people would probably make if they were converting a space from an accessory use to a livable space. They're not adding,
Okay,
things that would not be customary in a house.
okay, I appreciate that, thanks.
If you're not the expert around here, who is?
That's my opinion. I know.
My main concern is as I think some of the other commissioners have mentioned, is the perpetuity nature of the special use, but that's the nature of the beast. So, I do like the idea of potentially, and I understand the concern about, you know, comings and goings, but I do like the idea of putting a limit on the number of animals that can be in the home that are not owned by Mr. Gibson, and specifying that this shall not allow boarding.
I agree with that. Jacob?
And I think the boarding is a whole nother special use.
That would be a different permit anyway.
Yeah, so
I
it's,
believe it would, but
it's a different, it would be a different special use for us, but it also requires a different license by the state.
Right.
So it would be a twofold.
and it's not included in the application, so it would require him to come back. So I don't know if it would be specified in the language of recommending one way or the other. But just, I like the idea of making it clear, which I'm sure you already knew, that no boarding. Okay.
Sometimes it's helpful to be here on some of that stuff too for future.
Right.
No, that sounds good. Does anybody else have anything to say?
Well, I thought we talked about it last time and he fixed the thing we needed him to fix.
I would make the motion to recommend approving a special use permit.
Recommending.
Huh?
Said it.
Did
Yeah,
you say-
recommending approval, recommending to the city commission approval of the special use permit, given that it now meets the ordinance conditions. I would recommend also limiting that there should be no more than 2 dogs in the facility or in the special use space that are not owned by Mr. Gibson or the homeowner, rather.
That to 2 dogs per appointment.
For however,
Yeah.
whatever's the cleanest language to do that.
You want to add the boarding?
I think it's already covered in the fact that it would need to be a special, I guess I'd defer to Michelle on that. If it's worth adding the clarifying language, I think it's clear that it would not be allowed under the special use permit because it's not something contained in the
It would
application and would
not be,
require additional facilities.
It's not allowed either way, so.
yeah, it's not allowed either way. It's up to the board on if you include it. So like if someone, Mr. Gibson sold the property, or they sold the property and someone came in and wanted to run a dog grooming business in the future and they asked us what they were allowed, we would pull the original application and go through it, so it would be fairly clear what was allowed. It's up to the board if they wanted to include the no kennel.
I guess for the sake of clarity, we can say that boarding is not an allowed use.
I'll second.
Morosky?
I was just gonna say do a roll call.
Cloud?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Montgomery?
Yeah.
Reddick?
Yes.
Booth?
Yes.
This will go to city commission January 6th.
Thank you so much, appreciate everybody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you everybody for coming. Appreciate it.
Nice meeting you both.
I got the guy,
Meet
So it looks like we're going into general business, and we have any update on any projects?
Crest Oil, I had a meeting with them last week. Things are going well. And they're, should meet their April deadline that gave them that 6-month extension. They should be able to meet that. The warm days have been helpful to them.
Sure, I bet.
And I think they needed like a couple more warm days to get their roof done, and then they were gonna be ready to start finishing the inside and moving material in. So,
I saw insulation going up on that roof too.
maybe they got it done over while I was warm.
How
So
about
they
the
seem,
how about the fence? That seemed to be a concern of people.
we talked about the fence while we were there, and I think it's gonna be fine.
Okay, that's good. Under that, we have 2025 calendar.
So that's the calendar of meetings for next year. And I just have it for your guys' information for you.
I didn't count, but it's still just the third week.
Yes. Joey figured out how to do it on an Excel formula. So
Unless it lands on a holiday. We go through.
Just as a heads up now, I probably won't be here for the June meeting. I have to be working in Metro Forest that week. EMS.
What about the bylaws?
I will get with Brad.
Okay, I mean, do you need help from the planning commission as far as a committee or something? I'm just wondering, I mean,
I'll take a look at them too and dig into them a little bit more. I do think when, at the last city commission meeting, they talked about their rules of procedure, cause they adopt them at the beginning of every year. And we're questioning whether they should have people, because they're public and they're on YouTube, if we should have people give their address and phone numbers, or if we should just have them say their name and the street they live on, just for personal security.
Yeah, I saw
That's a
that.
very good point.
I believe so
We
too.
want to know that they live in the city, but we don't need to.
In fact, I don't think they'd have to give you anything.
And so
Yeah.
maybe just looking at that in our stuff and
Yeah.
seeing how that looks. January, we will have a meeting. At that meeting, we'll go over the CIP. And unless you guys want a special meeting for that, and then there's something else on that. My brain.
Master plan?
Master plan, we'll have a public hearing on the master plan. And that will be ready for adoption, and then also we'll go through the CIP projects.
When is CIP due?
All of the projects were due last week, so I'm compiling the list right now for them. And then I will send them out probably right after Christmas for people to start ranking. And then we decided as a board that instead of having 2 people, that you all wanted to be part of that process and learn it. So we'll do the ranking as a group. I'll pull it up on the laptop and you guys can see it. We can go through and rank it. So be ready for a long meeting in January, because I think there's
That'd be a long one.
80 projects.
Oh, jeez. Holy cow.
I move that we have pizza for that.
Okay, is there any unscheduled business? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting. It is 7:08.
Are we gonna get railings for all the parades, or was that just a Christmas